They will give you the material beforehand, and you may think simultaneous is like you're just going there and just listening, and then you're just thinking in your hand and spitting out in the other, in your mouth, through your mouth. But overall, interpreters spend nights like before conferences, and they study the material.
Yes.
And you have to come ready. Yes.
Wow. So there's a lot of studying involved. It's not just going there, doing it on the spot.
No.
Yeah.
To interpret for 2 hours, you'll probably have to, prepare twice as much as that.
Wow. And I know you are a very good person who prepares ahead. I seen it with our show. You come with different topics that you wanted to. I was impressed. We've never had a guest where they were so organized like this, No, I think you're fabulous. And when I first met you, I actually thought you were, 교포, from another, country. And it's absolutely fabulous, how far you've gone. Now, tell me, have you studied abroad?
Yes, I have actually. I actually went to elementary school in Hong Kong back in 1983. So I went to school there for 4 years. I actually went to a British school. So my English was originally a British accent.
Okay.
I would say a bottle of water instead of bottle of water. Now,
it's like a tea.
That's what I used to say, yes. That's how I learned. All my teachers were British. Hong Kong, came back to China's sovereignty, I think it was 1997. And then I came back to Korea. All my school years was in Korea. I went to the U.S., to Tennessee, as an exchange student in 1997. And I did 2 years of my master's in California, Monterey. And that was in 2001 until 2003. So I did spend a good 7 years overseas, but the vast amount of my education was in Korea at Korean institutions.
Okay, well, let's talk about language learning a little bit, if you can tell us, because, of course, many of our viewers are watching this because they're wanting to improve their English. You being almost an expert in this because you yourself are going through the same thing of, improving your English. And then when you see the Korean and you see foreign people trying to learn Korean, if you can say which language is easier to learn or how can they improve in learning and from your own experiences, if you can share that with our viewers.
That's a great question, Dorothy. Now, a lot of people ask me, how can you become a good speaker of English? Now, there's no one set way where you can become a very proficient English speaker. For foreign languages, you really have to dig in and try to find the right method for you. And people like us in broadcasting and in education, we kind of try to find effective ways that will help you in general. And then you'll probably have to pick from several of them. Now, I'm also doing my PhD in English education right now, and one of the reasons I'm doing that is that I really want to find one of the most effective ways, not the most effective, one of the most effective ways to help Koreans, not like people overseas, to help Koreans learn the language, because our language is beautiful. It's very scientific, and you can express a lot of things in our language. But because of that mother tongue, there are some barriers when it comes to learning English. But there are also common denominators you can find in both languages. And if you start finding those things, it will help you indeed improve yourself in English proficiency. A lot of people, the society these days requires people to speak the language better, not just listen and read and understand the language, not the input side of things, more output, more speaking and writing. Now, one of the common denominators of English and Korean is that, for example, in English, a single word like heart is used in so many different ways. So for a non-native speaker, the word heart is just like a very important organ in your body, right? But heart can be used in so many different ways. For example, from the bottom of my heart, I know the lyrics by heart. That person has no heart, something like that, right? So in terms of using or utilizing the word, you really have to be on top of how a single word is used in that manner. Same thing with Korean. The word 마음심, like a lot of Korean words are based upon Chinese characters. The 마음심 is used in so many different ways, like 진심, right? Or 절치부심, or 심신이 필요하다. So the reason a lot of non-native speakers of Korean have a difficult time learning Korean is because of the Chinese characters that are based in that. Same thing, 마음심 is heart. So you really, once you learn the superficial words and the meanings of words, you have to dig in. And in order for you to become more proficient in a language, you have to dig in and perhaps expand your horizon when it comes to certain words that you can use more in different contexts.
That is true. You know, you bring up a good point here, and I want to explain here. There's always in languages these special rules. We have to just memorize it. There is no way to explain it. For example, you bring a good point of the Korean and our hanja that's very difficult in our Korean language. Even in English, for example, there are rules where we say, okay, goose, koi, or geese. But when we say mouse, the plural form is not meese, it's mice, you know? So these are things that's very important to actually just memorize, or we often say sometimes with verbs, irregular verbs and things like this. And every language has this. And that's what makes it, I think, a little bit difficult. Oh, what do we have to memorize? What do we have to know?
Yes.
You know?
I mean, there are rules. I mean, there are forms and functions when it comes to language. So the more you get used to or familiar with the forms and the rules in the language, the better you will be in a position to learn the language overall. One thing that's very funny is that when you're actually talking about a computer mouse, you don't say mice again, you say two mouses. So that's another new word you might want to pick up. And there are rules that are broken, and that broken rule will probably be broken again because of another word that is coined.
A new decade.
There you go.
And languages definitely change, you know, as years come. Let's go back to your interpreting side again. While you're interpreting, actually, I want to bring up this point because one time I heard on a radio show that somebody was actually translating for a radio show, and it was a very famous violinist. I'm not going to mention the name, but this person first came to Korea, couldn't speak Korean, but somebody was on the show interpreting or translating or interpreting, and he talks about, oh, you know, Korea, South Korea is very, you know, a lot of people are hungry. He was talking as if it was, you know, a different country, and wasn't very familiar with our Korea here, our South Korea. So the interpreter actually changed the translation of how they, you know, said it to protect his identity. Now, how are you in this issue of, do you really just interpret exactly the way it is? Or if you're like maybe saying representing this company or this person, do you change it in emotion? Like, this is very difficult.
That's a very, very good question. Like back in grad school,